Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen. Most of us don't like to think about death. I don't. But sometimes these things are forced upon us whether we like it or not. I was married to my first wife, Julie, for nearly 20 years. Then one Sunday, she was feeling a bit off colour. On the Monday, she had a seriously bad headache. On the Tuesday, she had an even worse headache. The worst headache she had ever had, she said. On Wednesday, she seemed to be getting better. On Thursday, she was dead. At 4:30 that morning, she woke me, said she was feeling a bit strange and needed a cuddle. By 7 o'clock, her speech was slurred and she couldn't move the limbs down her left side. I thought she'd had a stroke. I immediately dialed 000. She was rushed to hospital. Various tests were done and things seemed to stabilise. She was kept under observation. I had my 12-year-old son with me, and because things were getting a bit boring, I gave him the choice. He could stay with me, or he could go to school, whatever he wanted. He chose to go to school. By the time I returned to the hospital, Julie was bleeding only because of the tube inserted in her throat. They discovered a double brain hemorrhage. One here, on the left side, which explained the slurred speech. But more importantly, one at the back, which is why she stopped breathing. She was rushed into surgery. The idea was to drill a hole in her skull to relieve the pressure on her brain. Before they could do that, an angiogram revealed that there was already insufficient blood getting to her brain. That she was almost entirely brain dead, and that it was irreversible. I then had to go home and perform the most difficult task of my life. There is nothing that has happened before or since that comes close to comparing with the difficulty of having to tell my 12-year-old boy that his mother has just died. The family all around us, we wept long into the night. But before I left the hospital, I was asked by one of the doctors, had I considered donating Julie's organs? And my immediate answer, even in the depth of my shock, was yes. And I was able to answer that way because we had already discussed that if some disaster befell us, that we would want to donate our organs. Let me tell you what it's like to be an organ recipient. Somebody received Julie's lungs. When you're on the waiting list for a pair of lungs, typically you have 1 or 2 weeks left to live. You're permanently attached to an oxygen bottle, and even with that oxygen, you can barely talk, you can barely move. All you can do, really, is just wait to die. Somebody received new life thanks to Julie's lungs. The same can be said for the recipient of Julie's heart. Somebody else can see today because they received Julie's cornea. 2 people each received a kidney from Julie. One of them had been on dialysis for 3 years. When you're on dialysis, you can't hold down a normal life. For several hours, several times a week, you're attached to a machine to clean your blood. You can't have a holiday, you can't keep down a full-time job. All you can do is survive. 2 people left the hospital without the constraints of dialysis. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 8,000 people in Australia on dialysis. 6,500 of those people don't even have a hope of getting on the waiting list for a transplant. there aren't enough to go around. There are 3,000 people in Australia waiting for organs. 20% of those people will die waiting for their organs. When a plane crashes, 300 or 400 people die, it makes headline news. And so it should. I don't wish to downplay the tragedy that is an airline crash. But that many people are dying every year in Australia waiting for an organ. Why is this so? Australia has one of the highest success rates of organ transplant in the world. Recent research revealed that about 90% of people approve of organ donation. And yet when the time comes, only slightly more than half of the transplants take place. The reason is because even if you sign the organ donor registry, it's your next of kin that make the decision. The chances are that if you haven't discussed it with them, in the depths of their shock, they will probably say no. You can make a difference. What I urge you to do, sign up at Medicare on the organ donor registry. Tick yes on your licence. But more importantly, talk to your family. Tell them why you've signed the organ donor registry. Tell them why it's important to you. Tell them the stories of the organ recipients. Tell them that you want good to come from bad.